the way we're watering right now, it's working, and it does work. And we kind of all joke about it here because it's kind of, it's definitely a rancher setup. But we have like a 1,500 gallon big water tank on a trailer. And then we fill that, midsummer we're filling it twice a week. Usually we can get a week out of it. But then we run that down into a garden hose, into a float that's hooked onto their 250 gallon, they're not chemical, but my brain instantly goes to chemical totes. They're cut in half. So we have about 250 gallons of water that are cut in half, fed by a float, fed by this tank, and then those are also on a shorter trailer. And early on, the cattle never have a problem reaching the tank. Early on, there's a ramp in the back, or the sheep might need to go up the ramp to kind of figure out what's going on. But once they know that, this is where I get water, we just, they can reach it, and there's usually not any problem. One thing I kind of wanted to mention, with rotational grazing, kind of the reason why we do it, and kind of what our process, where our brain goes when we think of why are we doing this. And it kind of goes back to, if you read the Lewis and Clark journals, as they come up through North Dakota, they kind of describe the landscape, and they talk about these, at a glance, there's thousands of animals, and they're, in these big herds roaming the plains, and they're being chased around by, wolves and bears and other predators, keeping them constantly on the move, and we're talking, thousands of animals, and that's kind of how our soils evolved in this area, and by doing this, by grazing this way, we're trying to mimic that the best we can with high intensity, short frequency, and then long rest and recovery. Typically to how like the bison would move across the plains, they would move in these massive herds and graze an area really hard, and then they would leave, and who knows when they'd come back. Is it 6 months? Is it a year? Is it 3 years? That we don't exactly know, but we do know that they were definitely letting these areas rest and recover, and they certainly weren't grazing in the same area, all year round. So kind of going, back to why are we doing this? We're trying to treat our soils and our perennials, as they evolved over time in this area. So typically, when we're doing this rotational grazing, all the animals actually look really well. They look like they're doing great. Their body condition scores are good, and kind of tracking their weights through the year. Pretty much consistently, they're gaining weight. We might find a forage here or there that they maybe don't perform super well on, but in the long term, they're not ever going backwards. They're typically always gaining weight. They appear to be in good body condition score. We don't use any sort of like insect repellent or any pour-ons or anything like that. And I think the daily moves help with that. I think, by the time those larvae are hatching in the pads, you're kind of 3 or 4 moves down. And I'm not saying that there's no flies. I mean, that would just be ridiculous, but it doesn't really seem to be a huge problem. Sometimes you go to these places and the livestock are just loaded with these flies, and we don't really see that out here. It could be too due to the fact that this year we did give a garlic type mineral, and that seemed to really help. I mean, there was basically no flies on the critters, but typically throughout the year the animals are in good condition. They never really seem bogged down or anything like that. They're actually quite energetic and excited to move when they see me coming. So